AskReddit by discombobulated foul. People who went from being extremely attracted to someone to being indifferent or repelled. What killed it? Absolutely zero interest or ability to recognize their part in a conflict. Completely unable to take responsibility for their mistakes and turning to emotional abuse to deflect accountability. Someone I was head over heels for is like this. I try to start a reasonable conversation with "Hey, I didn't like the way X happened. Can we talk about it?" It escalates to yelling on their part within minutes, then deflection to something I did wrong months ago. And I realized it's a pattern. Every issue I have turns into a conversation about his feelings and my wrongdoings. I went from being beyond attracted to this person to distaste bordering on disgust. It's hard, as an adult, to be attracted to someone who behaves like an emotionally deranged 8-year-old. He didn't have my back during an extremely stressful situation and I instantly fell out of love. I once had been diagnosed with something awful and he wasn't there for me, or helped me get through it at all. Luckily, it was a misdiagnosis. However, the damage was done and I am actually thankful for it. Being ignored for long periods of time. Always being the one initiating conversations. Rarely getting the time of day. All of this shows disinterest and I hate that he won't just come out and say it. Girl has me locked up like that right now. Ex-girlfriend, I wanted to give it another go. She seemed excited about that. But then doesn't answer my calls or texts for days, never know what she's doing, and only see her every couple weeks. But if I back off and stop initiating, and try to move on, she's all up in my pudding. I'm pretty sure I'm dating someone else's girlfriend now, and I'm a side piece lol. Every instance of that disinterest and yo-yo game bullcrap makes her slightly less attractive. I've basically cut ties at this point, but I'm not seeing anyone, and the sex is still pretty great. Getting to know them. They were a pretty unhappy and generally mean person inside. Once I saw how they treated others while demanding they be treated much better by everyone, the attraction was gone. Oh, I have the opposite with a friend of mine. Was indifferent about her at first. Now I know her quite good and she's such an uplifting person. I find everything about her really attractive now. He, verbally, disrespected me in front of our friends. The attraction was just instantly off. Thankfully some of my friends had my back but a few others didn't. Edit, grammar and specifics. Went through something similar with an ex. We were 17/18 and 20/21. I expected him to be more mature, but he was a real douche. We were at a house party with people mostly my age from my high school, even though he's the one that wanted me to go. Already weird that he didn't really have friends his own age, but I was dumb then. He was yelling across a beer pong table and garage full of people. He called my name a few times and then yelled "Hey slut" at me. Well, I heard that and turned around. A lot of the people started laughing, either at me or out of discomfort, but it was so embarrassing. Same guy showed my nudes, I was 17 I think, to his EMT class, so adults, not minors, he was taking at a community college. I went to a party with him for that class and someone mentioned my pictures. Everyone had seen me naked and I hadn't even known until I got there. So embarrassing. My wife cheating on me after being together for 36 years. Total devastation. I can't even imagine. Losing my 7-year relationship damn near killed me. I think I'm pregnant. I'm a week late. How can you be pregnant? You told me you were on the pill. I was. But I missed a couple days. Then I missed a couple more. So I just gave up and stopped taking them. Why didn't you tell me? We should have gone back to using condoms. I don't like condoms. And God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I couldn't handle a child right now. So I didn't think God would let me get pregnant. We'd been together for less than 3 months. She got a pregnancy test, it came back negative, and I immediately broke up with her. This happened to one of my friends and his now ex got pregnant and kept the baby. Before that he never wanted kids. This is why if you don't want kids you should never rely on the other person for birth control. Lack of empathy, zero morals, ethics. Instant repulsion. I look at them and feel it's such a waste. I knew a guy like that. He would do anything because he saw no issue in what could happen to others. But oh boy, if you did it to him he was appalled that you didn't consider his feelings. Bless his heart, he was dumb as a stump. I saw a guy at a bar once who I swore was the hottest guy I'd ever seen. I told my friend, who told the guy, and he asked for my number. We talked and I told him I worked at a certain bookstore. He then proceeded to come there looking for me. It was closing and I had to shelve some books. In alphabetical order. I was looking for the right letter on the shelves and he laughed and said he didn't know the alphabet. He started trying to say it and kept screwing it up. He didn't know the alphabet. I've never 180'd on attraction so hard in my life. I was feeling like I might maybe want to do the deed with a guy, then one day he casually put his arm around me, which is fine and all, but his armpit smelled like a septic tank full of onions. Full on gagged me, I had to get up and leave. Felt bad for him, but goddamn dude, get some fucking degree. God, just reading that makes my stomach churn. She kicked her dog just having the gall to be in her way when she was frustrated about something else. Hopefully you took the dog with you. They opened their mouth. But seriously, a shitty personality makes everyone ugly. This is really petty compared to other stuff here, but I showed her a song I really liked. She laughed at it, like I had made a joke. Just instantly no feelings for her anymore. It was weird. I feel this. My wife made fun of my music after we were married. Never before. We have some overlap in taste, but it's pretty small. One day I was cleaning dishes and turned some of my music on, not thinking anything of it. She made fun of it pretty hard, and that was 10 years ago, and I'm still bitter about it. And I've made damn sure she hasn't heard a single note of my music since then. Terrifying road rage. He was driving unsafely. I asked him to please drive a bit more safely. He got really angry and started yelling while driving about 100 miles per hour, weaving in and out of traffic. I thought he was going to kill us. Yep. I dated one that considered every pass on the highway a personal insult. I shut my eyes riding with him from St. Louis to Cleveland. Finding out he not only peed into leftover 40s when he was drunk, but he also hid them in the closet. Why were there multiple bottles? What was he saving them for? Thank God we never moved past the early stages of dating. Deleted. He left a skid mark on my bed. After that every time I looked at him all I saw was that nasty skid mark. Had a dude chart in my bed 6 years later and it still haunts me. He treated me like his mom outside of the bedroom and then tried to be dominant in the bedroom. Hard to find a man sexy after you have cleaned his mess, done his college work, and cooked all his meals all day. Edited for clarity. This. They act like dependents then wonder why we don't want to FK them. It was always a pity party. He showed no will to improve himself and that pretty much killed any sexual attraction. Eventually the relationship fell apart afterwards. There's nothing worse than constant complaining pity parties with zero will or desire to actually change. The last person I was messing around with and almost dated dropped a red flag the size of one of those insane sized dust flags you've seen driving down a highway that you see and think who the hell needs a flag that big, and then you see it's like a mattress store or something in a strip mall. I've cheated on everyone I've ever been in a relationship with. Fucking see ya never, my lady. Refreshingly honest for a cheater, at least. We were laughing one day with his friends and then on the way back I got backhanded. Holy shit. Did he not like something you said and then thought the right course of action was to discipline you in private? Sickening. This is dark and trigger warning. My ex-fiancé of 7 years once said, "It feels like I'm raping you." He was. This was during sex after he goaded me into it. God, he was already abusive and I was already on my way out, but that solidified everything in my mind. Lack of interest in his end. I'm no chaser. This is my current situation right now. The interest has dropped significantly, and I am slow fading because he is so nonchalant and I feel like a bother. Edit. I am slow fading because I have had this conversation several times with him and it's not even worth it anymore. I liked a guy when I was in my early 20s. He was late 20s and we started hanging out, fooling around. He left my birthday party with a 15-year-old and almost had sex with her. He was too high to get it up. Edit. Almost raped her. He left my birthday party with a 15-year-old and almost raped her. He was too high to get it up. Fi. Constantly trying to correct my behavior. Bad hygiene and table manners. The constant lip smacking, chewing with mouth open and talking with mouth full of food. I cannot stand that shit. When a guy starts loudly smacking his food, I stop eating. It turns my stomach. Her brother was a pedo and I said he would never be left alone with my child. She defended him. I had an acquired disability that may be hereditary, keratoconus. The girl I was seeing looked disgusted when I answered and explained what it was. And mentioned that she wasn't sure if she wanted my genetics if we were to have kids. She had a gallbladder removed and tumors removed from her breasts within the previous 12 months, so I found it hypocritical and I loathe hypocrisy. As someone with keratoconus, fuck that shit. And FFS, now that we have sclerals plus C3R Athens protocol, the prognosis is really good for new diagnoses. Knew a cute girl from work. She'd flirt with me occasionally and I'd flirt back. One day she needed a ride home, so I offered and she said yes. Over the course of the ride we were flirting, and I asked what type of music she liked and she said I like pretty much everything, except air music. It was so out of nowhere, and she said it so casually. We're both white, but I'm really not down with racism, and it immediately killed any attraction I felt towards her. Back in college I was flirting with a cute punk type girl and she started talking about how Hitler was kinda cool when you think about it. It's been 20 years and I still distinctly remember the feeling of all attraction fleeing from my body. He told me I wasn't smart enough to consider dating seriously and had no empathy. That about did it. He liked to brag. The best bragger. I figured out after about 7 months that he didn't actually care about me. He didn't want me. I was a placeholder. He was also easily led by his disrespectful, incel-adjacent friends. I'm guessing they gave him shit about dating me and he changed how he treated me. The biggest thing was when he told me talking to me was a burden, because he'd rather be getting high and playing video games. TBF though, he'd rather be doing that than having sex too. It was a bunch of small shit that really added up to he didn't want me and I am not going to stay where I'm not wanted. He stopped himself from full on punching me the face, millimeters from my face. We had been together for a bit over 17 years and right up until that moment I loved that man, thought I did. Anyways, we were fighting, like always, and I said something that sent him over the edge. He rushed me and barely stopped himself from hitting me. We were done in that instant. I didn't leave right away. But I knew at that moment, no matter how he played that off, done. Good for you. That was a test and you passed. Discovering that I wasn't really attracted to her, I was attracted to the idealized fantasy in my mind that I imagined her to be. This has actually happened to me more than once, from the other side. Apparently I make a great first impression on people, since when I'm feeling outgoing I can be very forward and funny, but then when they realize that most of the time I'm a pretty quiet and low-key person, or when I make a social mistake, they lose interest quickly. Never have figured out how to mitigate the problem. She dropped her daughter off and never came back. She always gave excuses why. I already had our son. She ghosted us after 6 months. I have had to have my family get guardianship for her. She mine now 3 years later. She about to turn 6 and really wouldn't change any of my own choices. Bitch destroyed my fence in Minecraft and let all my pigs out. Worst one, by far. You win. Would do or say literally anything to win approval from her parents. She had none of her own firm beliefs or values, just whatever she thought they'd want her to do or say. She called my teen a fucking bitch to my face. Infidelity. 3.5 years of lying on the most basic shit ever. She was unstable AF. It was when I realized he wasn't the one for me. We weren't compatible intellectually. Even though that didn't change his outward attractiveness, I found I had no desire to do anything intimate with him anymore, even kiss. The relationship had just run its course, and even my body knew it. He said supposedly. OMG, that is so frustrating. Girl hocked a hockology on the floor while sitting in a booth at a restaurant and just continued talking like nothing happened. Casually laughed about drunk driving to get food the other night. Lol. I went on a date with a girl to a restaurant. In the middle of a conversation she just burps, long and strong like Homer Simpson, and continued talking like nothing happened. I was in shock. She didn't even say excuse me or anything. I thought that was weird, but okay. She did it 4 more times and I just couldn't deal with it. He always drank too much. He would say he felt better if he forced himself to throw up. So he would be loudly gagging into the toilet, making himself buff before coming to bed. Sometimes he was more drunk and would get into bed and feel sick and refuse to go to the washroom. So I'd have to bring him a bucket so he could puke in bed, and then I'd have to stay awake, and then sleep on the couch, to make sure he didn't choke on his own vomit in his sleep. He refused to believe he had a drinking problem. He also barely showered and often didn't brush his teeth. And got a bad haircut and stuck with it. And constantly farted around me while I was eating. Lots of things, it turns out. I had a guy invite me to see him do stand up at an open mic night. He proceeded to tell a bunch of jokes that were insanely racist and homophobic that weren't even vaguely funny. There was no actual off-color dark edgy humor, just rants against other groups. He then proceeded to get mad that people have no sense of humor, and I was horrified to be sitting with him at the club until I could come up with an excuse to leave. I hate this. I've had so many guys tell me I have a dark sense of humor only to find out they say offensive shit with no punchline and that passes as funny to them. Mocking my weight. I barely knew him, and yet he joked like we were best friends since kindergarten and we insulted each other on a regular funny basis. I don't like insulting jokes, but here it killed my interest in 1 second. Literally felt it trough my body. Also, dude was literally gym teacher. When I got how superficial he was, J literally became the damn cliche of Spider-Man's Flash Thompson. Sounds like negging. It's something that male dating coaches say to do despite it literally never working on women ever. My theory is that male dating coaches are like those acne products that are secretly designed to give you more acne so that you'll buy more. Oh, she still didn't like you? That's just cause you didn't do the other totally legit things that I'll teach you about if you give me more money. He was staunchly against free and reduced school lunch. I was only 20, definitely didn't even see myself as someone who would ever have kids at the time, but still knew that only a gross miser would hold that opinion. It's fucking food for children. Not being interested in improving themselves or curious about the world. Nothing less attractive to me. He told me I used big words to purposely make him feel stupid. That's just how I was taught to speak. That was a huge turn off. You mean to say he irately remarked that you routinely utilized an extensive, if not complex vocabulary in order to rattle his rather insipid sentiments, even though you were simply raised in a manner that encouraged eloquence, if not conciseness? My word. They didn't wash their hands with soap. Constant gaslighting, telling me I should eat less, scolding me about my weight, never touching me in a non-sexual way. It felt like my boobs were stress balls attached to me. Financial abuse, never listening to the things I wanted, both sexually and just normal wants when living with someone. Telling me hurtful things like my family only pretends to love me, leaving a huge mess everywhere he went, then complaining about the mess as if it was my fault. Cutting me off from friends and family, constantly tracking my every move, critiquing everything I did from my tone of voice to the way I shut a door, etc.